Ian.
Right. In January 21, which is only a couple of months away, it will be 3 years since the introduction of the Baker Clause. And of course, the Baker Clause, having come into effect in 2018, it stipulates that schools must ensure that a range of education and training providers have access to pupils from year 8 to year 13, so they can be informed about the technical education and apprenticeship opportunities. So, that's an important aspect of the government's aspiration in terms of the overall skills and training agenda. What levels of compliance with the Baker Clause are you actually finding out in schools? And I know there's been a hiatus due to the fact that we've had the pandemic this year, but it is an important facet to the government's overall training and skills agenda. And how much focus are you putting on the compliance with the Baker Clause?
It is a part of the inspection of every school. I believe it is a relatively small proportion where we have found non-compliance, but I would have to write to the committee with the statistics on that.
Yeah, I think it is vitally important, and on other inquiries, we've had so much evidence imparted to us that young people who've come out of schools and gone into training are telling us on a regular basis that they didn't have any access to impartial, independent careers advice and guidance, or access to any other providers, including FE colleges. So it is vitally important, and I would ask you to just ratchet it up a bit in terms of its importance in inspections.
You're absolutely right. It's extremely important, and in going back into inspection, we need to make sure it gets the attention it deserves. Thank you.
Is there anything in particular you can think of that you would want to do in order to make sure that compliance is more rigorously adhered to?
I hope.
Can I just comment on that? I mean, are there specific examples of schools being pulled up for not providing objective advice? And is there anything more that the DfE could do within the scope of existing legislation to hold schools to account on the Baker Clause?
I believe that we have reported on examples, but I can include that in what we what we write in response to Ian's question. Is there scope? I think the statutory requirement is very clear. I think embedding it in inspection gives it teeth. I don't think anybody contemplated inspection stopping at that point. So obviously the lever is not fully functional. And clearly schools and colleges have a particularly tough time at the moment, making sure that despite the disruptions to education, that every child gets onto the right pathway. September just gone, September next year. And not just that they get onto the right pathway, but also that they get the help they need, because no matter how much we might wish it were otherwise, some are going to have missed stuff that they actually need. If you're going on to do a next stage course with sort of significant maths or physics content, say, if you haven't been taught the relevant bits, then you've got to learn them. So part of it is about making sure that children have the opportunity to be taught.
Could you strengthen the focus on careers advice in the inspection framework?
I think it's absolutely explicit and clear already. It's one of a very small number of things that we report on in their own right. So I think it is already particularly strong.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Chief Inspector. I really don't feel it is strong. The evidence that we're getting from a whole range of different people shows that it isn't, because of the experience of young people.
It would be very helpful if they could write to me about where they believe it isn't happening. Could I ask you to encourage people to do that? It would.
Do you have the figures at hand for the school's compliance with the Baker Clause?
No, I don't. I'm not.
If you could possibly write to us, because it seems to me there's a significant amount not following it and the clause, and I think existing measures haven't worked. Ian,
I think, Chair, yes, I think it isn't the fact that it isn't happening at all, but as an element of lip service. So it's been seen to be doing something, but not entirely the right thing. And I really do think it is important, A, to make sure that youngsters are getting the right destinations, would be to make sure that the government's overall agenda of skills and training has some chance that youngsters are given access to impartial careers advice, education and guidance.
Yep. It is absolutely important, and I would like to make sure that inspection gives it the space it deserves. But I do believe it was fully reflected in the current inspection framework.
Just perhaps you could write to us, just to one with the figures, but also to set out what you're trying to do to ensure compliance, proper compliance, as Ian has made the